All right, welcome everyone. We've got another podcast, a very special guest. He's very dear to my heart for a few reasons. We're going to cover that as well. Jared, how are you doing?
Hanging in, doing as well as could be expected, I'd say.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. That's a fair response.
You know?
So lot to talk about, lot to cover. Want to go through your illustrious career. You're a World Series of Bracelet poker winner. You're a WPT winner. You've won high rollers. You've done a lot of things in poker. But I want to kick it off with a World Series story because this is one of the more entertaining things I've heard. Can you tell me about your World Series of Poker? I forget what year. Give us, set the whole stage and what happened that you were blinding out of the most prestigious, biggest tournament, 10K buy-in, 6, 7, 8 million to first, and you had a lot of chips and you were blinding out of a tournament. Just could you walk me through how this is possible?
Well, I mean, I didn't want to be blinding out, but I was locked up in a cage. I didn't have much of a choice. So in between day one and day two of the main, there's always a day off. And on that day off, it was probably like 8, 9 o'clock. I went to go meet my roommates for some dinner, get ready for day two. And as I'm driving, I decided that I was actually going to a Brazilian steakhouse. I figured I gotta increase my appetite a little bit, so I might want to just smoke a quick joint on the way. And 5, 6 seconds after I lit it up, I'm getting pulled over on the 15. And next thing you know, I'm getting arrested and spending the next 18 hours in jail straight into day two of the main. And I think I blinded out for about 4 hours on day two. But by the time I got there, I still had like a decent amount of chips. And within an orbit, I had more chips than I started the day with. And I think I ended up making day 5 that year. So wasn't too much of a detriment for me. I might have done worse had I showed up on time.
Were you sick in that tournament, or you left early, or was it the day 2 you left early, or something? Or was
I left early that same day also. Like I got there like 3 or 4 hours late. I ran up my stack to 500K or whatever, and I hadn't slept in like 2 days because I didn't sleep at all in jail, and so I couldn't even see the cards. Like I literally was like hallucinating. So with like an hour left in the day, I just was like, I'm leaving. I left my card there and just went home and let them bag my chips for me.
So it's pretty amazing. The actual story that I remember more vivid details. Could you explain what it was like in jail? Because you've never been to jail before, if I remember, and you were in jail.
It was my first experience with jail. Yeah. Hopefully my last.
Okay.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
But can you tell me about how, like on a 1 to 1,000 scale, how tilted are you? Because this is a ridiculous situation, but on most other days, it's very rare to actually be. And say it was like a win side event or an Aria, some thing, a 1K or 500. It's even like less crazy. This is the main event. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 1,000,000, how tilted were you, and how crazy of a story was it? You must have been beside yourself. I
want to say that the first thing on my mind was the main event, but I just wanted to get the fuck out of there because it was not a pleasant place to be. I was told originally when I got arrested that I would only be there for 18 hours, which would have let me out before the main started, but then they weren't letting me out. So for the first most of the time I was there, I wasn't too worried about getting there on time because I thought I'd be out by then. But next thing you know, they were fucking with me and they wouldn't let me out. And I had to have Aaron literally had to go find a lawyer who got a order from a judge forcing them to release me. So it got much crazier, probably around an hour before the main was about to start. That's when I started really freaking out about missing it. I was in a cell with 20 people, and I didn't say anything to anyone probably for about 10 hours, and then I started to make some friends inside, and I started telling them what was going on. And they were like, we got to get you out of here. And they started banging on the doors and stuff, trying to get me out of jail. And they were like, wait a second, you're playing that thing we see on TV. You can win 8 million. I was like, yeah, yo, we got to get you out of here. And I was just like, I don't think that anyone's going to get me out of here any quicker from inside, but appreciate the effort.
They were organizing,
but yeah.
Didn't you get one call or something? Wasn't it? Didn't you fake sick or you were having a seizure? Wasn't there some other stuff to it?
Oh yeah, Yeah, so basically, once I realized that they were messing with me and weren't going to let me out, well, first I wanted to get the hell out of the cell because I like my anxiety's bad to begin with. I don't like so when I knew I was getting out in 18 hours, I just kind of had like a clock in my head being like, oh, I'm going to get out of here, blah blah blah. I just got to make it this long. And then once they told me that like I might be staying there for days, I started to freak out a little bit, and I also knew that like I needed to kind of push the envelope. So I basically, with the help of some of the guys in the cell, basically faked a heart attack. And so they had to take me out of the cell. And then like I made it so that like my blood pressure, like I started like almost inducing a panic attack so that my blood pressure would get high enough that they couldn't put me back in there. And then since I knew they were really supposed to be letting me out, I knew at that point that like if I kept up this charade, they'd want to get me out of there because they wouldn't want to risk it. And I think they kind of knew I was faking it, but they couldn't prove it. So I think, yeah, it worked.
Yeah,
it got me out of it. The combination of that and Massey's help, definitely. I probably would have sat in there at least another 5-10 hours if it weren't for those two things. Yeah.
Well, very.
So sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, man.
Very, very intense experience. I'm glad you got out, and it looks like you had a fair shot at it. You built some chips and went on a run. But all right, so cover that. Let's dive in a little bit to those that may not know you. A lot of people do. We'll look back at your Hendon Mob career, and you could maybe tell me a little bit about how you got started. It looks like you were around the same time. I think are you 39 right now or 40? Almost 40?
I'm 39. Yeah, I'm 40 in February. Basically dead. Yeah. How old are you?
40, I'm 34. Fresh 34. Yeah.
You look at least 36, to be honest.
That's all right. I'll take what I can get. You know, that's not a big deal. 40. So 40 during COVID. How has COVID been for you? And let's just provide a little bit of context where you are, because you are in a beautiful apartment. Thing is absolutely like stunning. I see the stuff, the decorations, and the stuff going on. Tell me what is that place? Where are you?
I mean, the apartment's okay. It's, you know, the landlord kind of left it a little bit run down and dilapidated. So I had to go into my own pocket and, you know, fix it up a little bit, spruce it up a little bit. But, you know, it's not a bad place to be. But yeah, obviously for those of you who don't know, I live in Jeff's apartment over at Panorama. He's a pretty good landlord. I mean, he's a little eccentric. Sometimes he gets a little worried for no reason. You know, he's, always asking me whether or not I'm keeping it clean or not, which, even if it's not clean, we just get a broom and a vacuum and, we'll clean it up.
Well, this was a double header podcast. Yeah, it was more somewhat to check on you in life and get your story, but also just, I want to get a visual.
Yeah, look, it looks good. We're good. It's nice and clean. There's no holes in the walls or anything like that. You should have seen my old apartment in Brooklyn. There were a lot of holes in the walls. So, I treat your place with a lot more respect. What do you got going on over there?
Big bug flying around. That's how it goes. It's a little crazy. All right, so the apartment's good. You're good. How is COVID? What have you been doing in with this time? I mean, it's a wild time for you. You're a people person. You play live. Yeah. You bounce around. What is going on in Vegas and with you in COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played any poker live since right before COVID started, probably like early March. I basically spent the first 5 months not leaving this apartment. I took it real seriously. I probably left Panorama like 3 or 4 times in 5 months, and it was basically not to do much of anything, maybe to like run to the bank real quick or like take a walk or whatever. But I didn't leave. I stayed in here. In the last like month or so, I've gone out a little bit. I've gone out to dinner a few times, like outdoors, and hung out with a few people who I thought the risks were a little low, but like not indoors, basically outside all the time. I mean, I'm still taking it pretty seriously. It's been rough. I haven't enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of online poker, not as much recently, but at the beginning, a lot of TV, a lot of Netflix, not a lot of much else. Taking about 3 showers a day just to kill the time, stay clean.
That's good. Do you have any? Do you have any reasons to significantly worry more so about COVID? Like, do you have any health like things that would
I have mild asthma, which isn't great. I'm obviously not in peak physical fitness. So I mean,
You could argue that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite in your shape. I see you. It looks like you've been working out. The wife's got you on the treadmill lifting weights. I could tell. But I mean, most likely I'd be okay. But I'm not really trying to chance it more than I need to. Especially at this point, like I've made it this far. There'll probably be a vaccine. Not too long. I wouldn't want to get sick. Like a month or two before. I could possibly avoid it. But I mean, I've definitely loosened the reins a little bit recently.
What is the actual Vegas scene? Because I see a little bit of stuff. I see some people talking about vlogs or going to play a cash session. Are all the casinos open? Are some open? What is the actual?
Most of the casinos are open. I mean, in terms of the poker rooms, like the Wynn just opened their poker room. I think maybe like a week or two ago. Aria and Bellagio have been open for a bit. I think some of the smaller places have opened. Venetian's open. Venetian's running tournaments. Most of them have like the plastic dividers and stuff up. But yeah, I mean, I haven't played any live. A bunch of my friends have. They've played some of the Venetian tournaments. People are playing cash. I'm not really looking to risk it. To me, still like being indoors, sharing cards, and sitting around for like 10 hours a day is more of a risk than I'm ready to take right now.
Right. Okay.
That could change. A really good 25K, Aria shows up and I, find my way into that. I might gamble a little bit, but I'm not rushing to go play, any $300 Venetian tournaments. Not yet, at least,
Right, for sure. Okay, well let's take a little bit at a look at your career here and when you got started in live poker. Can you tell me? I saw some notes. You were a lawyer. You went to school. You were delivering pizzas for a bit. What was like the pre-poker Jared Jaffe life into poker? Give me a little background on how you got into poker and what you were doing before.
I mean, I was playing some semblance of poker as long as I can remember. I mean, I was playing poker probably one way or another when I was in junior high school, maybe even before. I don't even, long time. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, after college, I got into online a decent amount. I took a year off in between college and law school and was just delivering pizzas in Staten Island because I didn't really want to work or go to school. I just kind of wanted to mess around, and I was starting to get into poker, so I was trying to do that. But then I ended up getting convinced to head to law school. I did that for 3 years, but I was playing tons of online poker at that point. I went to like PCA, like I think at least two of my 3 years of law school. I went there. I was playing underground games in New York back in the day when those games were really flourishing. And then after law school, I got a job, which I didn't really want. And then that lasted to my third day. And on my third day, I decided I don't want to do this anymore. And I quit. Basically, on the fourth day, they wanted me to actually go to court and do something. And I had no idea what I was even supposed to be doing. And at that point, I was like, this isn't for me. And been playing poker ever since full time, more or less. And yeah, that's about it.
Well, I do want to run through. Let's talk about some of the rises and some of the first. Like you get in, and it looks like your first ever cash was in Europe. What brought you to France, and why? Like, were you literally not playing live poker before that? You were just playing online. Well, how did you end up there and playing?
That was when I was playing online during law school, and I won a satellite to an EPT in Deauville, France. And I'm not even sure if I really knew what I was playing for. I think I just registered for a satellite. I didn't even realize I was playing like a must-play EPT satellite. But once I won, I think I even asked if I could not go and get the cash equivalent. And they were like, nah, you have to go. So I actually brought my parents with me on the trip because they'd never been to France. And I took them and, spent like a week or so in France, played these tournaments, didn't do so well in the main. I think I cashed one of the side events like you saw. So it was pretty much like my first live cash, at least like of any substance. But I mean, it's still not very big, but that was really one of my first live tournaments. Actually, was there.
I think your podcast number 94, and of like let's say 80 poker players, I think like 75 out of the 80, maybe 76 have final tabled on their Hendon Mob as their first recorded cash. So you're one of the few that didn't, which is interesting because I always joke. I think that's like a reason people get hooked or they're like into it and they keep going. But Jaffe, you're one of the few who've had an illustrious career and you stuck with it even after not that super taste of success. But I do see you won a 500 side event right not long after, or I guess the following year, exactly a year later. And you know, it's a 343 person. You took first place. You're in Biloxi. Do you remember what that was like? Was that a big bankroll booster and situation for you, or were you already doing well online?
That was basically the start of everything. I'd gone to the World Series for the first time that summer, which was 2009, and I lost everything I had. I lost my whole bankroll, and I left there with no idea what I was going to do, and I became friends with Ben Zamani, who used to be
so he backed you, right?
X to Stein X on Poker Stars, and I became friends with him that summer. And he told me he would start backing me after the series. So I was playing online for the next few months, and we were both not doing well. And so I was really like grinding low stakes, and then Ben won a seat to the PCA in January, and he was not doing well either. He didn't really even have enough money to be staking me at that point, and he got fourth in the PCA for $1 million. And he basically just sent me a wire and was like, "Go to Biloxi. I'll meet you there in a couple days. Play some side events, and try to run it up." So I get there. He's not there yet. I play the 500. I win it, and then I play like a 300 like 2 days later and get third. And then when he showed up, and I played like the 1K on full tilt, like on a Tuesday, whenever that used to be, and I final tabled that. And then next thing you know, he's like, "Well, I guess we're playing the main," and the main was a 10K WPT at that point, the Southern Poker Championship, and I got fourth in that for probably 170,000 or something like that. So that basically, had Stein not won $1 million at PCA, I don't know if I'm playing poker today, because.
It's funny how that works, the butterfly effect or one little thing. And then literally, I think in a lot of poker players' cases too, that have success early or later or lucky, or they have friends that do well. Cause it just kind of, it is a funny game. And would you say at this point, I mean, you weren't doing, not saying you do now, but like studying, work on your game. I've heard you reference that, you were kind of, it's more like feeling like looking at what you knew then and what you know now, like, do you feel it's kind of amazing the results you had, or did you just like, what were you doing? What was your game like here? Because I see you had a second in 2010, not right after as well, like March, your next tournament.
Yeah, the win.
246. So, I mean, you're just like, you're rolling. I mean, you're just absolutely crushing it.
Yeah, 2010 was a good year for me.
What was your style like? Were you saying like, were you a great poker player then, or were you just kind of like figuring it out and versus the field just felt like you had an edge? What was sort of your bread and butter about your game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever been a great poker player, to be honest with you. I think that back then, obviously the game wasn't nearly as tough as it is now. I think that I obviously got fortunate to like run good in certain situations. I think, like I had like just my own non-GTO kind of, I was a field player. I just kind of played on instinct and whatnot, and it worked out. Like I think my instincts were decent at that point, but I definitely wasn't. I definitely wasn't anywhere near the top of the game. But obviously, as you know, it doesn't really make a difference. Anybody can win a poker tournament. I think I was better than the field, but not as good as the best players. And I think as the game has evolved, I've gotten better, but so has everybody else. I don't think at any point was I one of the best players, but I think I do enough well that it puts me in a position where I have a chance. And, I'm not scared at the table. I put myself in situations where if things go right, I can win. And, that's more or less how I do it.
You have a pretty blunt, brash. Like you're on Twitter. I see you get, you fire off. You say what's on your mind. You don't mind going hard at people and poker. Like, tell me what you believe to be true about the poker kind of world as a whole. Because it's a great game. There's a lot of, I think it's fair to say you've met a lot of your best friends or people in poker. The people you like to be around, you're around, or that are in poker. But poker's got kind of a funny world, and your kind of outlook, the way you just smash on, people, like you just call it how you see it. So what do you believe in poker is true at the moment? Like, just give me like your kind of outlook on the game and the whole situation about poker.
I mean,
in general.
I think like with most things, there's good and there's bad. Kind of my general rule when it came to like my social life in poker was I only wanted to really develop close relationships with people who I would want to have close relationships with outside of poker. So I wasn't trying to just, become friends with people because they were good at poker. Like, I have no interest in that. People who I'm friends with and I'm closest with are people who, if I stopped playing poker today, I would still want to be close with. So that was kind of my strategy in terms of building relationships. With that being said, like, I think it's good to get to know as many people as you can and, develop maybe not super close friendships, but, good relationships with as many people as possible. But let's be honest, there's a lot of different types of people in the poker world, and I don't love all of them. I'm not I could care less if you're a good poker player. That doesn't impress me. I want to be friends with people just because they win or because they have a lot of money or because people perceive them to be famous. Personally, I don't think anybody who plays poker really, other than maybe like 3 or 4 people who are exceptions to the rule, I don't think any of them are, famous people. Like, this is poker. It's not, you're not an A-list actor. You're not a superstar in sports or anything like that. It's the cool thing about poker is it's a game that anyone can sit down and play with you. And I think it's important that, somebody who's one of the best players in the world can be sitting at a table with some random guy. And I don't think that you should be looking down on somebody because they might not, study poker the way you do. Like, people who look down on others for that reason, they bother me. And obviously, I think there's a lot of fake people in poker. I try to be as real as possible, which I'm sure rubs some people the wrong way. But the people who I'm rubbing the wrong way, honestly, I don't really care because I wouldn't want to socialize with them, or I don't really genuinely care what they think anyway. I wish that this game was a little bit more transparent and a little bit less clicky, because I think that's what it's kind of become. You can't really take as many people at face value these days, I feel like, as you did back in the day. A lot of people have agendas and angles and whatever. And, I think that even though there's a lot of money to be won and there's a lot of people showing up to tournaments, I think that we'd be in a lot better shape in general as a community if people's attitudes towards the game and why they were playing and how they were playing and people who played before were a little bit better than they are right now. I think there's, it's almost become like a secret society in terms of like, almost like a high school club, you know what I mean? Or, which I don't like. I think it's childish, and, we're all adults in this game now, and I don't think it should be that way. I think we should be more welcoming of other people than we are. I
think that's for sure been a topic of discussion, and there is there's a kind of layered, complex situation in some of that, but I agree with you, and it's you do kind of notice it, and it does become more prevalent now, especially I think as you've been in the game for what, technically 16 since you're 21. I mean, have you been playing pretty much 23, 25, like seriously?
I'd say I've been playing like super seriously, like traveling and stuff, for about 10, 11 years, probably 11 years, but I was playing online probably pretty seriously for like 4 or 5 years before that. So yeah, something like that. I think that the way I perceived poker and like the upper echelon of the poker community when I was first starting out, like just before I played live and before I kind of like made a name for myself, isn't what it is today. I don't know. I mean, I think I had a pretty good perception of what it was back then, and I think it's changed a lot. And I think that we would be better off, maybe taking a step back towards where it was than continuing to go in the direction that it's been trending now, honestly.
Right. What would be, let's talk about online poker, because I picture you more as a live guy. You have won a World Poker Tour main event. You've won a WSOP championship tournament, so you have a bracelet. What do you believe measures a poker player, though? Like, when you look at someone, you see this. That's sort of how you see Phil Hellmuth with the most bracelets, and this is what we sort of talk about. But like, to you, when you size up someone's game or their resume, what to you makes is important, or is that stuff just completely overrated?
I mean, I think, like I said, anybody can win a poker tournament. One or two of them. I don't think winning any specific tournament, unless you're talking about like winning, one of these 100Ks or 500Ks where basically everybody in it is a known elite of the game. I don't think winning any real tournament necessarily defines you as a good player or a great player. I think the best way is consistency, winning over a long period of time. Like I said, anybody can win a tournament, but if you see somebody consistently, making the final couple tables of tournaments, final 30 players, 25 players, whatever, over and over again, I think that's more of an indication than somebody just happening to win a bracelet or happening to win a WPT. I think when it comes to cash games, it's the same. Like, anybody can, scrounge up a bunch of money from investors and go play in a big game and have some success and make a good call or a good fold or whatever. But it's the people who are like out there grinding anything from 2-5 to 10-20 or higher or whatever. The people who are doing that consistently for a long period of time, and they're always winning and they're supporting their family or whatever. Like, those are the people who are who I think are the best players, and the ones who, that's the way to measure success. It's basically just over a long period of time, being successful, winning, going deep, which is why, like, when you see somebody on a heater short term, like we've seen plenty of people win over a short period of time and then disappear a year or two later. So I think obviously everybody knows what variance is and sample size, and I think that you need a pretty long period of success to really be considered, the upper level of poker, personally.
Yes, I agree. You mentioned family. What about for the ladies out there that will view this? Are you on the market? Would you like to have kids one day? Give us a little bit of a personal look into Jared's life. Are you single, engaged, married?
Yeah, I'm on the market. I think I'm on sale. You can find me at the 99-cent store, discounted rack.
COVID especially is tough out there right now, I bet. Single life, huh?
Seriously. I mean, single, hanging out. Sure, if the situation was right, I wouldn't mind, settling down and having a family. But also at this point, I gotta learn how to take care of myself still too. So, but yeah, I mean, I'd like to be like you one day, settle down with a beautiful woman and make a beautiful child. Like, everybody aspires to the Jeff Gross life. Everybody knows that, you're the pinnacle of the.
I'm not taking down the rent. The rent's at the bottom. I'm not going to take these compliments, and we're not going that we hit the floor.
We can talk about a little discount. I mean, it's the right thing to do. When somebody's as rich as you and somebody's as bad off as me, I think it's the right thing to do.
All right. Well,
you can ask your viewers. Talk to your viewers, see what they say. Maybe put a poll.
Do a straw poll on rent. What it could be. We got to do a full tour of the apartment. We'll save that for later if we have time. All right, let's go back to your success. I don't want to get onto this. I just want to check in, make sure the ladies know you're available. So we covered that. We kind of scrolled through. So a couple years go down. You hit some 6-figure scores. You're in the mix, pretty consistent, and then you win in 2013 November a WPT. I've played it one time, Jacksonville. So you get the best bet trophy. You take it down for 252, 358 entrants, a reasonable size field. I mean, it's still big, but not as big as some of the other WPTs. What was that like? Was there anything special about that tournament? Did you know you were going to win? Was your back up against the wall? What was different, or did you run hot? Talk me through this win in this World Poker Tour event.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first big win. Like, that was my first legitimate big time win. That was like my third or fourth WPT final table, and I think it was my third, and I had gotten like a fourth and a fifth, and I kind of was like, I was the chip leader going into the final six, and I thought that I was probably I thought I was probably the best player still at the table at that point, honestly. And I had the chip lead, and I'd had some close calls before, so I was like, I felt good, but I also felt a pretty good amount of pressure because, like, I'd been in good spots before and hadn't closed it, and I felt like this was a really good situation for me.
It's rare. I'll say I don't notice almost nobody. I mean, I see David Diaz. Is that lefty, right? They call him like lefty was in there. I know I see Matt Glantz, but like Madsen, a few guys, but like down the stretch here, like I don't recognize many of these guys' names. So maybe is that sort of to the point too, where you're like, all right, there's no Darren Elias or Anthony Zeno here. Like, I might be able to just sort of outmaneuver these guys legitimately, like straight up. Like I just should be a favorite.
Yeah, like I said, I had the chip lead, and like I probably had the most experience and the most results even still at that point at the table. So it was like a double-edged sword where I was in a really good situation, but I also was feeling a little pressure because of that, because I felt like I needed to win. Anything less than first was going to be super disappointing in that spot. And like I said, I hadn't had a big win before that. So, yeah, I mean, the final table actually went pretty smoothly up until it got heads up. And then I got heads up and I lost a few pots, and it was a little swingy. And then basically I got it in a big one where, like, I flopped a flush draw with like deuce four hearts, and the guy Blake had aces on on the flop, and if I would have lost, he would have gone ahead of me. He probably would have had about a 60-40 lead on me if I had lost that one. But I spiked the flush on the river, and honestly, I would say that was probably the best feeling I've had in poker. I would say that was the most joy I experienced in poker. That moment of all the things that I've accomplished. That was probably number one in terms of pure excitement.
And was there any big purchases, anything partying going on? Did the tournament end early, late? Was it like anything unique there? I mean, Jacksonville's, it's in that area. I don't think there's like a ton to do right there.
No,
I actually remember staying at a hotel, but I can't really remember.
No, actually, I went the next day to the WPT in St. Martin. I missed my flight there because my flight was on the final table. I went with Bobby Abudi, who I used to travel with all the time, and so basically we switched. I paid for us to switch our flights to the next day, and we drove. We rented a car and drove, I think, to, I want to say, Orlando.
Yeah.
And then flew from there to St. Martin like the next morning for the first WPT that they ever had in St. Martin. And yeah, I partied a little bit my first night in St. Martin with a couple guys when, it was a small field, but a couple of us went out and we had a good time. But yeah, I didn't really make any big purchases or whatever, I'm trying to think. I mean, I definitely didn't have 100% of myself. I had a decent piece, but like I basically was just using that money to live and to reinvest in poker. You getting attacked over there by some type of insect? It looks like you're scared.
Can you hear that? Can you hear that thing? There's literally like a big
I just see you reacting to it, and it looks like.
I'm nervous now. The Mike Pence thing. I saw these memes in the fly. I just don't want this like huge fly to take a dump on my head. But it's like
you're a lot more liked than Mike Pence, though. So even if that happened, I think that
we get through
people would react in a different way.
I think we'll be okay. All right. Well, so very cool. So you win the tournament. You did that take a little pressure off your back? Like, what are your family? What's their background with poker and you playing and traveling the world and not being a lawyer? You were a lawyer. You do the thing. Like, do your parents, they're supportive of it? Do they not like it? How does that fall in? And how big was it to win like a tournament like that?
Yeah, I mean, my mom hated that I was playing poker. She did not want me to do that. My dad was always playing poker. That's probably where I picked it up from. He was more than happy with me doing it if I was successful, but if I wasn't, he would tell me that I had to, get a real job. Yeah, that definitely helped because that showed that, I had I was able to play well enough to win money in the game. Even though I'd been winning a little bit before that, that was like obviously enough money to support myself for a while. And it definitely gave me some breathing room and made it so that I wasn't really worrying about money for a little bit. But anybody who knows me knows that I like to put money into play. So, even, $100,000, $200,000 that could potentially, disappear pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, I think as with pretty much anybody, when you win that first big thing, it takes a lot of pressure off, and both psychologically and financially, and it did for me. And I was lucky enough to kind of run pretty well, after that, to the point where I was in a decent spot, for the next few years before I ever had to worry about any real cold streaks. So it was a big help.
I'm looking at it too. It looks like you just binked another one right after. If you look at your career, that was a good stretch for you, because then, kind of holiday season, maybe you didn't play so much. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's like November here, and now you just come in January, kick off the year with the WPT final table. I guess you played St. Martin, maybe not much else, but then you bink another pretty massive score, about for even actually a little more in the same buy-in. You get fourth, but not a win, but still a 252 there. So I mean, I mean, that was a nice to feel. You must have been top of the world. That's sort of your area, right? You probably had family, friends there at that.
Yeah, Borgata, a bunch of people, came down for the final table. Wasn't exactly the result I was looking for. Obviously, I've had a lot of fourths, fifths, and sixths, but and that was obviously a big one. I think it was at least 750,000, or maybe more for first. Yeah, had a pretty memorable hand that I lost, a lot of chips on. Maybe I would have played a little differently. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I went on a nice little run after that, and it kind of snowballed in a good way. And yeah, there was a nice stretch there for a couple of years where I was deep in a lot of WPTs and some WSOPs, and I was pretty fortunate, for sure.
Well, before I don't want to spend the whole podcast on your results and runs, but just to kind of hit the other major category you did not long after as well. So June, we're talking, this is all in a pretty quick stretch, but then you do knock off a first place in a World Series, a poker event, which is, there's basically two majors, and then you can argue EPT, Party Poker now, but there's the other tie, but these are like the two people talk about. They measure tournament player success, WSOP, WPT. And what was that like to actually win a World Series event? Because now you've been going to Vegas for numerous years, and how did that one feel? How did that rank with the WPT?
Yeah, see, the main difference between those two was, so like I said, like when I won the WPT, that was probably the most joy I felt and the most excited I felt. When I won the bracelet, it was more like relief. I had wanted to win a bracelet for so long, and back then, at least, much more so than now, I think the value of the bracelet was a little bit higher in terms of stature, and people wanting to win a bracelet more than the money, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, I wanted to win the money, but once I got down to the final, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, which we could remind your audience, I believe you got 7th in that tournament, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there he is, 7th place. I appreciate you bowing out and let me take it down. I was feeling so much pressure on myself to not blow the opportunity, because I had gotten like a 3rd place a couple of years before that, and I think I had like a 6th place or 7th place, and like, it's real hard to get through those fields. Every summer they get bigger, and I genuinely didn't know if I was ever going to be in that situation again. Like, I haven't since, really, and I just really, really wanted to win. And when I did, it was just kind of like a load off my back. And, I was real happy. But like I said, with the WPT, I kind of felt joy. And with that, I just kind of felt relief.
Tough opponent there, heads up, actually. Sir Watts, Mike Watson. He was my latest guest on the podcast, or in the last 2 at least. Tough player.
Must have been an exciting podcast.
What's that?
I said that must have been a real exciting podcast.
To be fair, Mike Watson is he's got a very interesting story, and he's one of the more successful players. I think he's more quiet, because people don't know him as well. But I actually his fiance and Amelia are very close, and I've known him. He's not one of my that's not someone I spend a lot of time with, but I do know him. And he's a very interesting guy, brilliant, and a great player. Were you intimidated? Did you feel like what was your strategy in that? And like, was it close heads up, or how did that go down?
I had a pretty good advantage when we started. And it was like a huge grind. Like, obviously, he's really good poker player, and he's not giving any chips away at any point. He's a lot better than I was then. He's a lot better than I am now. But it was actually brutal. Like, I hated it. He wouldn't say a word.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that like when you probably were like when you got to heads up, no matter if it's like 40 blinds to 14, like like you're gonna really have to earn it. Like he's not gonna make one mistake. He's gonna limp buttons. He's gonna make it.
He wouldn't talk. He wouldn't smile. He wouldn't interact. He wouldn't gamble. He was just. Not in an insulting way, but like if you're ever going to pick the type of player you don't want to play heads up with, it's that guy, because it's a grind and you're going to have to do everything right to beat him. And on top of it, you're going to have no fun doing it. Like I tried to talk to him. I tried to loosen up the vibe. It didn't work. He wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't smile. He wouldn't interact. Super serious. It was like a robot.
Well, he's a consummate professional. I think that's a fair way to put it. Like he's like a guy, like he's just a guy he's there on a mission, and he's like Mark Herm got third. Herm, like you guys probably would have had.
Yeah, if I would have played Mark heads up, we would have had a party. Like it would have been a lot of fun. And Mark's a great player also, just a little different type of personality, obviously, and also a different brand of poker. Mark's gonna mix it up a lot more. And maybe play a lot more aggressive and pedal to the metal. Whereas at least my experience playing against Mike, he values every chip as much as anyone does, and you got to fight him for every chip. And
I said, a little more of my style, but I would be definitely chirping a bit more. But yeah, you
would have at least smiled at least once. Like if you doubled up, you might have cracked a smile if I made a joke.
Not because I wanted to, I just can't help it. That's the problem.
Yeah, you're just a happy guy.
I would want to be serious, but exactly. I get it. Anyways, compliments to Mike. He is a tough cookie. It's been on the podcast, and congrats. How did you end up getting him? What was the chip disparity when you started heads up? Do you remember? I think
I almost had like close to a 2-1 lead on him. It was something like that.
Still wide open.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good. But then he actually like I kept getting him down to like 10 blinds, and he just kept doubling up. And then right before we went on a break, I bluffed off a ton of chips, and he actually took the lead on me, and I was just so demoralized because literally he had like between 10 and 25 blinds for so long, and I couldn't get those chips. And then all of a sudden now he's beating me, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to get all these chips now? I couldn't get him for his last 10 blinds. Like I was just so demoralized. And I had a huge rail there, like very supportive friends. And, on break, I got a couple pep talks, and I kind of did what I was doing. And I saw that he was, like I said, like not really, he was playing a little tighter, and I just tried to turn on the pressure a little bit. And I built back the lead. And then I think I had him down to maybe 10 or 12 bigs again, and I actually got lucky. I think he had something like jacks, and I had maybe ace-6 suited or something like that, and I think I rivered a straight maybe, and that's how I won. But he was short again when that happened. But it was, of all the heads-up matches I played, that was 100% the most grueling and toughest, and the least fun one for me to play, which is a compliment to him. He made it uncomfortable.
For sure. I would have to agree with that. So, all right. So again, don't want to spend too much time. We hit some of the big wins. You play after that, you go on a really big stretch. And then I saw you won a 25K RE. I remember that actually. I think I was around that time for a nice, maybe your biggest score. You had a couple other here at Poker Masters, a score. You had a 400K. What's it like playing in a 20? Because I think we might either played in the same field or, here's the one you won for 300. When you're playing against these 5K, 3Ks, big size fields, when you're playing 25K with arguably a lot of the best players in the world. How does that kind of how does that go for you? Like, what's your mindset when you go dabble in one of these with the big buy-in, small field, tougher pound for pound? How do you sort of adjust?
Yeah, I mean, when I first played it, played my first Aria 25K, it was kind of completely out of nowhere. Somebody just offered me a good opportunity, and I went in there, and I got to be honest, like, it was awesome being there, but I also didn't feel very comfortable. Like, everybody there knew each other. Everybody there was, there were no soft spots. Maybe one, maybe two. I mean, I was the soft spot. Let's be honest in that field. It was clear. I know how I'm getting looked at, but honestly, I feel super, like, after like playing like one of them, I've just felt super comfortable in them. Like, I don't mind that I'm looked at as, one of the spots in the field. Because I'm very cognizant of that I am. But with that being said, I think when you look at, me as one of the weaker players in a field like that versus like when you look at like a weak player in like, a regular WPT, there's a real difference. Like a weak player in a 1500 or a 2K, something like that, literally may have no idea what they're doing. They could just be having a good time, whatever. I obviously have a clue what I'm doing. I can figure things out. I can make adjustments, and I think I'm able to recognize how I'm perceived, and I can adjust to that and turn some of my weaknesses into strengths against fields like that. With that being said, I'm not lying to myself. I know that in order to win, I'm gonna have to run above expectation against these guys. But also knowing that they know that they should be outplaying me and should be beating me, I think, in certain situations may put pressure on them that I don't have to experience. And I think that runs to my benefit also. I think I'm self-aware at the table, and for that reason, I'm able to do certain things that I may not get away with in a 3,500 or a 1K, but I can get away with them in a 25K because I'm looked upon differently by the players there. And, I think that's the best thing in terms of my game in those spots is just that I think I do a pretty good job of turning my weaknesses into strengths. And I think that I just love playing them. It's fun to play in really nice studios with small fields, 4, 5, 6-handed for a lot of money when you only have to maybe beat 30 or 40 players. It's, it's I don't enjoy anything in poker more than playing those. I hope I get to play more. You never know. Those aren't, I don't belong there, but I try to get in when I can.
The Hard Rock 25Ks before COVID, at least like for the last 3-4 years, they get, 100, 115, 16, 17 entrants spot on like every time total entrance, which is pretty crazy. Like a lot of those.
Yeah. Right before COVID, I actually got third in that one. It was smaller though. It maybe only had, I think maybe like 50 or 60 players. I think it was in like November or whatever.
Yeah.
That was the first 25K that I had final table that wasn't one of the Aria ones. I mean, I entered it pretty late, and I just kind of like hung around, and then I was the shortest stack on the bubble, and it was like a 2-hour bubble, and I was really breathless about potentially bubbling that one because it's no fun bubbling a 25K, but I actually ran it up, and I actually got to the final table with the chip lead, and things didn't go great for me on the last day. I got third, can't complain. The other Jaffe, John Jaffe, Iftari, he ended up winning. He is as tough a player to play against. He was on my direct left, and he had chips, and he didn't let me breathe basically the whole day. So without some good hands with him on your left, you're gonna have a tough day. And I did, and but third place is you sign for that before the tournament starts every time, so can't complain.
Yeah, that's a good showing for the Jaffes over there. Good for sure. It's tough. It's a pretty unique name. It's tough when you're the second best Jaffe in your industry, but he's
I might be the third best. There's 3 of us.
For him, I was saying for him. Oh, who else is Jaffe? What other Jaffe are we throwing in the conversation?
You got John and you got Will.
Oh yeah, of course, Dankness. Yeah, I don't consider him much as a tournament player. I think he's more cash.
Yeah, he's a cash guy. He's a
So,
cash
but
guy.
yeah, you're talking pound for pound skill. You're right. Well, at least you're on the podium no matter what. I don't think there's anyone else.
Yeah. Listen, I'll take
That's
the
not-
bronze medal against two
that's
gentlemen.
That's not bad. It's hard. It's hard to be the best. Okay. Well, so anything else you want to say poker related in terms of tournaments? Because where do you feel we are in terms of the state of poker? Because we've been around for the ride. You're coming up to 40. Are you enthusiastic about the future of poker? Do you think it's dead? Do you think it's live poker is going to be great and online's dead? Like, what are your takes on live and online for the upcoming future? And like, say post COVID, let's just say 2021.
I mean, if you take COVID out of the equation and we get back to a time when things are normal again, whenever that may be, I think, I'm not a big online guy. I mean, I've played it plenty over the years, but I think that online poker is definitely on the downward trajectory. I don't think that it's. I think for many reasons, it's just not. It's not gonna. I wouldn't recommend anyone just trying to just start becoming an online pro. That's for sure. I'm not a big fan of a lot that goes on in online poker these days. As far as live poker is concerned, I think that there's a lot to be excited about, and I think there's a lot to be worried about. I think that even with all the things that have gone on negatively in poker over the last few years, whatever they may be, the numbers are still there. There's still a lot of people who come to all these tournaments, and the World Series puts on these Colossus events, which I don't like. I'm not going to lie. I don't like all these gimmicky tournaments, for $500 at the World Series. I don't like them at all, but they bring in thousands and thousands of players, so it's good for the poker economy. So the game is thriving, I think, from a numbers perspective, but I do think that there are a lot of things that need to be done in terms of how to sustain the game. I think that first of all, I think that reentries, although necessary, I think that they've gotten out of hand. Personally, I don't think it's good for poker allowing people to, buy in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times in a tournament, or at least not basically every tournament. There can be some tournaments like that. I think it's bad for the ecosystem in terms of, I think that middling poker pros are going to go broke a lot faster. Backers will go broke a lot faster. It's much harder to turn a profit that way, and it also is a negative for recreational players who only fire the one bullet. I think that it's important that if people travel across the country and they bust a tournament in the first level, they should be able to re-enter. I just think there should be a limit, or other things that we should implement to maybe even out the field. I always thought that a fair thing to do would be to maybe charge more for second and third bullets. If you've got a $3,500 tournament and you buy in a second time, maybe it's still $3,500. If you want to buy in a third time, maybe it costs you $4K. If you want to be in there 5 times, maybe it's a $5K. At least then that kind of puts a tax on the people who are just firing in infinite money, and it brings up the EV for the people who are just going to be there on a satellite or whatever. That was an idea that I had. I used to be a huge fan of the World Series. I still play all the tournaments and whatnot, but I am disappointed in the direction that it's gone. I think it's become a money grab. I think that by having so many gimmicky tournaments for low buy-ins and all these enormous fields, it's kind of watered down the product, which I don't like. Because in a broad sense, I love the World Series. I love playing it. But I just think that the prestige of winning it has gone down. I think that, I don't think that you should be able to win a $300 online tournament and get a World Series of Poker bracelet personally. I think that they are preying on people who just kind of want to be there. I think, listen, if you want to have one low buy-in tournament just so everybody can get a shot to play, fine, but it shouldn't be what the brand is built on. And same thing with the payout structures and whatnot. You shouldn't be, it isn't just the World Series. There's a lot of different poker tours. If you play, a 5K, you shouldn't have a min cash for, 7,000 or 6,500. Like, I think obviously what's being done there is a lot of these poker tours are trying to just put some money back in the players' pockets so that way they'll play another tournament and that'll be more rake for them, which is not a good thing, obviously. So I think a lot of things need to be done. I think it's difficult because as poker players, we don't really have we have no union, we have no nothing to fight against these other poker tours and whatnot to make things better. And we've seen that people are going to show up and play no matter what, basically. So it's tough. I think that of all the poker tours, I think the WPT does the best job. I think that their structures and their tournaments and everything are the fairest for the players and have the players' well-being for the most part, at the forefront. But there's nothing's perfect, and I think that if we want to sustain and keep the game growing, we're going to have to make some changes going forward. Otherwise, there could be hard times ahead.
Would you be interested in something, like playing? You played for so long. Would you like let's say these tournament directors, Matt Savage and Jack Effel and Tony Burns, the other kind of, do you have any interest? Was there a role or a situation where you could see getting more involved, or if somehow there was a panel or some sort of thing, would you want to try to help or be involved in a process to make these things you're mentioning? Is that something that you're?
Yeah, I would be glad to. I think there's a lot. That's the thing about poker, which is really crazy, because poker is probably the only business that you can run where your customers will happily pay you and do the work for you. Like, think about it. Think about how many poker players will sit there and go over a structure sheet and tell the poker tournament directors, listen, this is a better structure. They'll take hours to go through things and correct the problems for the people running these tournaments to make the tournaments better for themselves. And in what other business are the consumer really taking time out of their day voluntarily for nothing in return to try to help the person who's basically putting the product in front of them? It's a real interesting dynamic, and I think that if the higher ups, the tournament directors, the poker tours, I think, and some do a better job than others, some do a good job, some don't. I think if they were willing to sit down with the players and just listen a little bit more often, I mean, if I was running a business and someone wanted to do my job for me and I still got paid for it, I'd be thrilled. Whereas in poker, I feel like they get insulted and they don't want to listen to people a lot of the time. But like I said, if anybody wants to hire me, somebody wants to hire me and do all the work for me, God bless them. I'd be happy to do it. So I think in poker, you have the opportunity for your customers to really make your job a lot easier. And I think that the people in positions of power should take advantage of that.
Got to show Party Poker in the background here. Yeah, I think Party does it. I mean, so Party's done the online with the re-entry. They've limited to one re-entry. They got rid of HUDs, real names. What are those issues? You don't strike me as a HUD guy online, especially because you're playing I don't even think WSOP has it, right? And I mean,
in a
more respectful way. I mean, you're more, like you said, you're more of a field player. You don't, you're not doing that or running that kind of stuff. What does that make you more comfortable if you hear a site, no HUD, real name, one reentry? Is that like, does that help you? Do you think that's good? Or
yeah,
does it matter?
I think all those things are a benefit. I think they're all better for poker to do all those things. Obviously, I haven't had the opportunity to play on Party Poker at all. I know what they're doing, but you can't really play it from the States, and I haven't traveled to play it. But I think, yes, if all the different poker sites followed that model, I think we'd be better off than we are. Yeah, I mean,
let's take the Bellagio. You got 7th. I saw one year you the 5 Diamond, one of the most 10K multi-day. It's an amazing tournament. But like the re-entry stuff, you see Foxen. There's a controversial. He rebought 6 times. He wins the first place. He's in for 6 bullets. Like, he's one of the best players in the world, if not the best, regarded in tournaments. And he's imagine you're a wreck. You knock out Foxen, you're in for 1 bullet max. You want a satellite, and then he's over there check raising you in an hour at a new table. Like, that's it's tough, and it's hard to say though, because like Foxen would say, and some of these guys though, they are punting. Dylan Lind, who won the event as well, he was in for 7 bullets or 5 bullets. Like, so it's a give and take. Like, some way maybe they're not playing as well, and maybe they're adding money to the prize pool. It's not just clear cut, but where do you draw the line, like in your mind, for that?
I mean, obviously those guys, you don't take anything away from them. First of all, the rules are there and they're being followed. Like
Yeah,
you're
of
allowed
course.
to re-enter as many times as you want. And if those are the rules, then they're doing nothing wrong. And they're obviously incredible players. But yeah, I think that it would be, and I'm not even sure they would disagree, that I think it would be better if it wasn't allowed to get out of hand quite to that extent. Because like I've been in the position where like the first time I ever played that tournament, I was sat on day one next to Negreanu actually, and he was just, I think it was the year he was in for like 7 bullets or something like that. He was in for a lot of bullets, and he was literally like 10, 12xing pre-flop in the first level and just putting people all in for like 5x pot on the flop and stuff like that, like early on. And like, yeah, that's great if you pick up a hand and you hold. But for a lot of people, $10,000 is a lot of money, or they satellited into that tournament is a big thing. And like, yeah, it's poker. I get it. This is the game. You're supposed to exploit other people's weaknesses, but I'm not so sure that the best thing is to make the exploitation of other people's weaknesses that prominent. And I think that's what happens in those spots. Like, obviously, if you have a huge bankroll and you can re-enter as many times as you want, you should take advantage of people who don't want to bust a 10K in level 1. Like, yes, you should be doing that.
Right, and it's going to backfire.
That
It also changes the gameplay. Your experience. Right. Well, in Negreanu's case, who literally one of the few, people who just doesn't care in terms of like, yeah, if he busts or has to re-enter, he's happy to do it. I mean, that's pretty crazy to make a 10K a 70K. But imagine you're at his table and he's every hand you normally want to open, but he's gonna 7x you, and you open ace jack, and now you're just like every hand. It's like, oh, do I? You have to like adjust your strategy because he's doing this thing. So I'm with you. I think it's tricky, and it's these guys want to do big guarantees. They're trying to find ways to make people happy. Someone that flies from Arkansas to Vegas too. Maybe they want to rebuy once or twice. Like they don't want to bust and be out. It's a long way, so it's just hard. I think the 1 re-entry is like a pretty good baseline. Like that seems like a pretty
1, even 2, or even like I said, like some type of penalty, like for multiple bullets. But I think the most important thing that people need to realize is that yes, when somebody puts in 70K into a 10K, that increases the prize pool. But how much does it really increase the prize pool? What is that really bringing to the table? Like, how much is that actually equating to what's going into like an amateur player's pocket? Like, if Negreanu is in for, I hate using his name, but if anybody is in for 7 bullets as opposed to 3 bullets, and then some recreational player min cashes that tournament, how much money are they really seeing? Are they seeing enough money extra because of that all the people who were in that 1 bullet situation who didn't get a good playing experience out of that tournament where it evens out? I don't think so. Like, I think if somebody wins the tournament.
Yeah, I think the argument there is like there's more people are going to min cash. There's more entries, so like there will be more min cashes. But to your point, are they going to do better or like have a chance at a big score? Like, because then the better players, more chips are in play, better players have more opportunity to gain stacks. Those players are going to be able to leverage that a lot better down the stretch. And where
it's like winning 900,000. Like, if you told somebody that first place is going to be 750,000 as opposed to 950,000, like, I mean, it's still a lot of money. I'm sure whoever wins is still going to be pretty happy. I just think that
they'd rather deal with boxing 1 time than 4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
In that scenario.
And again, like, I just think that there's a middle ground. And like I said, like, I think it's it's 100% the reason why tournaments are run that way is greediness. Every time the tournaments don't care about how much money somebody wins. They care about the fact that, somebody won 1.5 million and they can advertise that and it looks good for them, not for anyone else. They care about themselves. They care about the rate that they're generating. That's all it is. And I think people need to understand that it's, for the most part, they're just trying to squeeze every nickel out of every player that they possibly can. And it would be people need to take a closer look at why things are happening and whether or not they're really for the betterment of the overall good or just a few people. And I think that it's clear that in most things you want to cater to the larger population than the smaller population, and that's how we should assess it.
Absolutely. Well, Jared, you've set again. It looks like the people, Twitter in particular. You've got a pretty big following. People like to know. We got a giveaway opportunity. People can ask their question. This is kind of our second podcast. It's like a 1.3. We did one in Choctaw, as a matter of fact. I believe we kind of did a little combo in there. I forget what that was exactly. Yeah, Helmuth was in there. We were in a random place, and maybe the following year, I think either Sexton was around. Rest in peace, Mike Sexton. Obviously super sad, one of the legends of the game and World Poker Tour. Just can't talk about World Poker Tour without him. The cup is named the Sexton Cup now. It makes sense. We were there in Choctaw. Yeah, it definitely should be. We were there in Choctaw. That's actually how you became. This exchange of rent of a place and you leasing, because I think we were in Choctaw. Out of all places, I've been there one time, like you've been and whatever, we were there and we started talking and it came up at a table, either me or you or Benny. Someone was talking and then all of a sudden,
I moved to the table at the end of the day, and I was saying how I wanted to move to Vegas in the next month or two, and you were telling me how you wanted to start renting out your place in the next month or two, and I only wanted to live at Panorama or the Martin, and you're like, well, my place is at the Panorama, and I was like, good, I'm moving in, and you're like, well, we need to discuss rent or whatever. I was like, it's not important. The apartment's mine. I'm moving in, and it's been the best relationship you've ever had in your life. I understand, and you can thank me for that.
You do tell me it's one of the highlights of your life and your existence is to be in there. So I don't want to remove you. We'll talk about that after. I think the end of the year it's up, but we'll rediscuss terms moving forward and what's going on. So I'll
it's up when I say it's up. You gotta. It's gonna take a lot to get me out of here. You're gonna have to wheel me out.
Squatters' rights, right? Squatters' rights.
You don't want to mess with squatters' rights. It's a losing battle for you.
Okay, well, we'll cover that later. Let's go into the Twitter world, because Twitter, I know you love Twitter. You're active, you're abrasive in a very good way. And abrasive is a strong word, but you're tough. You're in there. You tell people what they want to hear, you just say what you want to say, not what they want to hear. I'll say that. So we're gonna go through and we're gonna just kind of rattle off some stuff. All right, this is the first one. I don't know what this guy is. I know that's an interesting way to talk about the chicken or the egg. I've never really gotten deep into this. Do you have any chicken or egg? What came first? Have you ever thought of that? Do you ever? I don't even know. I thought about it the other day. I've never really actually given
the egg came first. Everybody knows that.
All right, that's cleared up.
That's clear.
Question: how do you think COVID-19 will affect live major tournaments, WPT, WSOP going forward? This unprecedented year. Should they have more or less online? So Craig Leonard 80 basically asking you, give a prediction on what's happening once tournaments open back up. How do you think things are going to be affected? And for you personally, how will you approach that?
I mean, I think in general, we're starting to see tournaments slowly creep back. I think it's obviously all going to kind of come down to, a vaccine. I think that if a vaccine that seems like it actually works comes out, then I think that we'll be able to get back to playing pretty much, soon after that happens. But if it doesn't happen for a while, I think that eventually I would say around New Year's ish, I think a lot of tournaments that happen every year are going to start coming back. And I think that the field sizes will obviously not be nearly as big as they were, but I still think they're going to get enough people for it to be profitable for everyone to play them. And obviously there's going to be a lot of precautions that need to be taken. Like, people are going to be wearing masks. There's going to be dividers. It's not going to be nearly the social game that we're used to. And, to be completely honest with you, it's not going to be fun. It's going to suck. But this is the world that we're living in. I personally am in no rush to get back to the tables while this is still going on. Obviously, the longer it goes, I may come to the point where I decide that, the risks are worth it, or I might just have no choice. But yeah, I mean, until this thing gets under control, and it's live poker. I mean, of all the things that you could do, really, there's not a whole lot worse in terms of riskiness during a pandemic than poker. I mean, you're sitting in a room with a bunch of other people pretty close to one another for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, sharing cards, sharing chips. I mean, it's not ideal. A lot of people don't care, and that's their preference, and God bless them, wish them the best of luck. But of all the activities out there, poker is definitely one of the worst for the situation that we're in, and we're gonna have to deal with it, and hopefully sooner than later we get to a point where we don't have to worry about this anymore. But in the meantime, it's not a great spot. It's definitely not a great spot for poker or poker players.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Someone here's asking about best day in your life. You mentioned WPT for poker. Winning that was just major and whatever. Give me some other events. Anything that like is super super happy in your life.
I got to be honest. The day I passed the bar, I was a pretty happy day. Because even though I went to a lot of school and did well enough, I didn't really ever do a whole lot of studying or much work, but that was the one thing that I had no choice. If I wanted to do it, I had to really. So I spent a good 3 months pretty much studying every day, which is probably I studied more in those 3 months than I did in my whole life combined through college, through law school, through everything. And I still definitely thought that I wasn't going to pass, and I did. And to me, that was a life accomplishment, even though I didn't do anything with it. It's just one of those things that I proved to myself I was able to do it. And, most things that you put a lot of work into, I'm sure you understand, if it feels real good when you find out that the hard work was worth it. So I was definitely up there.
Yeah. And give me how much harder would you say you studied in one or the other, like to become a lawyer or with poker? Because poker, you seem like you said you're a field player, like the Bring Kinney sort of style. Like there's a lot of work solvers, this and that. I mean, is it fair to say though, in terms of working on your game, it's different because people do different things. You have groups of friends. Obviously, you're around poker. You talk poker. You pick up bits and bobs. You watch some stuff on TV. You watch some videos maybe, or you see stuff. So there's a lot of different ways to study. I'm not a Solver World guy myself. I know what it is. I've looked at it. I understand a bit. But what is your studying in poker? How would you say you work on your game?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd say the overwhelming majority of the work that I've done in poker over the last 10 to 15 years has just been through playing, which obviously I've put in a lot of hours, both tournaments and cash games, just physically playing the game over the last 10, 15 years. Obviously, I talk a lot of poker. I mean, poker is a huge part of my life. Like a huge percentage of my friends are poker players. When I'm not actually playing, there's always somebody who's got a hand to discuss whatever. I would say that my friends and I probably discuss hands less than a lot of other people do, but still more than a non-poker player could probably fathom. I haven't really read many books. I haven't studied too many solvers. I know I've looked at things. But the majority of my work has been done physically playing the game and talking to people and going over things with people who I think are better than me. And while it's much different than sitting there and reading a textbook and memorizing statutes and whatnot, they're both a lot of work. Obviously, to me at least, it's a lot more fun work, gambling at a poker table and talking about a hand with your friends than it is to read a textbook. Right. That's me personally, and I enjoy it, which is the reason why I'm still doing it. If I didn't enjoy it, then I wouldn't be doing this at this point in my life. But it's a lot of work, but it's one of those things where I think some people really enjoy the work that they do, and some people do it just because they have to have a job and make a living. And for me, I not always. There's times where I hate playing poker. Things are going bad. Not everybody has a good day every day, but for the most part, I really love playing. And for me, it's more so not work, not tedious work at least than I feel like most people have to encounter in their normal everyday jobs. So I'm grateful.
Right. Yeah. No. It's fun. I mean, it's a great game. What's your favorite destination? You've gone to PCA a bunch. Bahamas, you mentioned, that was sort of like or at least a special one because the money at the time things are all different. He doesn't get that score. What is a place though like you enjoy? I know you've been representing the Hard Rock at times, sponsored there. Like what are some of the stops you just like won't miss or you love?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I used to love going to the PCA. The last few years of that, before they got rid of it, it wasn't the same as it used to be. It wasn't nearly as fun. But back when I was first playing and traveling, that was the tournament that I most wanted to go to every year. Usually, at least like the first few years that I was playing poker, I had to win a satellite online to get in, and I would literally – that's all I cared about for months was getting a satellite and winning that PCA package. Like I said, the last few years that I went there, the excitement wasn't quite the same as it used to be, but that used to be my number one. Now I would say, the Borgata has a special place to me because that's kind of where like I grew up and started playing. I try not to ever miss Hard Rock tournaments because, I used to be an ambassador there, and I really like the property. The tournaments are awesome. It's a great location. So I try to go to those all the time. And I would love to see Bay 101 Shooting Star come back. I mean, that was probably the consensus, like everyone's favorite tournament of the year when they had like the real Shooting Star, not what they've had the last couple of years over at Bay 101. That was like the fan favorite. That was the player's favorite. And it would be nice to get that one back. I actually only played that maybe like 3 or 4 times, but I had no good results at that tournament, and it was still one of my favorites to play, and I look forward to it every year. So, I would say those are my favorite destinations at this point. I had fun going to Dublin and playing there. That was great. But yeah.
Have you got to do any of the, have you been to the new Bahamas, the Bahamar? Have you been to the party poker?
I haven't been there yet. It's really once everything gets straightened out, you speak to your bosses over party poker and maybe hook me up with a package. I think it's the right thing to do.
Well,
speak to Rob in there. You guys are always giving things away. Let's, I think it's the right thing to do. Have me down there for my first time. We could document the experience.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. This is
get on it. It's the right thing to do. You're always giving your fans things.
I love that. I would love to see a little more support for you on my Twitch channel, and then I'll dig deeper for that. But you've been a good advocate.
Huge supporter.
I love it. What's your favorite hand? Forget aces, kings. Give me like what's your suited connector? What's your hand? Special hand you want to turn in with something? Give me like you see it and you're just like, I'm playing this.
I really like. I like 10-8 suited. I don't know. 10-8 suited, I enjoy. 6-8 suited. Those are probably two of my favorites. With a little gap in between.
Something a little sneaky home. Yeah.
Yeah, those are fun.
All right. Fair
I'll
enough.
take any hand.
What is your biggest live tourney cash? There's a question here. We've already kind of covered it. We've shown your Hen Mob impressive resume, but do you know off the top of your head what your biggest score is?
I think it was the bracelet for like 400 and change, I think.
Yeah. Definitely the ROI, because you had a couple 25Ks have been big, but the ROI, there's something nice about a low buy-in, big score. There's something just super, super clean about that when it's you just know you're doing well because you don't have to worry about how many buy-ins you played. Let's see. We got a lot of questions that people want to hear from you. I'm glad we're getting in here earlier than later. How long did it take to become a winning poker player? Were you winning from the gate, or did you take you a bit to figure it out?
I'm still trying to get there. I mean, it's been. I'll let you know when I get there.
Okay.
No, I mean, I would say that like I was playing online for probably like 3 or 4 or 5 years, and I was probably close to break even, maybe winning a little bit, maybe losing a little bit. And then I was lucky enough that when I really started playing, I probably started playing live right around 2009, 2010, and I had a huge year in 2010. So I was more fortunate than most that it didn't take me very long to have some success playing live. I've seen a lot of people who are way better players than me, and it takes them 5-10 years to have the little run of success that I had pretty much right off the bat. So I was super fortunate with that. And yeah.
What do you believe to be true about that? Because the variance is no question. I think it takes, you can wrap your head around it. You're a smart guy. you went to school, you understand variance. It's a little bit hard to let people understand that, but how do you sort of justify or explain that some guys that are so good? Like there's guys, there's great players and they really haven't had a break. And there's guys that maybe aren't so good and they've won a couple tournaments in a row. Other than explaining variance, like, is there anything that you think is it confidence? Is it belief? Is it just luck at that point? Because it is kind of crazy when you can say and play a game like this and you show up and you might just, anyone could win, which is nice because that's why the game exists. But it's also a bit funny to like realize you could go on a year run and be a great player and not win. So it's kind of a bit of a tricky thing. How do you sort of like balance that mentally?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what makes it that, makes it so hard to do it professionally, but makes it so that so many people who aren't professionals are willing to play to keep the game good for professionals because they know that they can win anytime. I would say when it comes to actually winning tournaments, so many things have to go right no matter how good you're playing to win. You need to not get unlucky. You need to get lucky. You need to win flips. When you have hands, somebody else has to have a hand and pay you off. There's so many things that need to happen and so few things that can happen to ruin your tournament. So that's why I said it's so much more. You want to, in my opinion, you want to see who's really performing. You don't look at, necessarily the final table or the final 2 or 3 players. Go look at a bunch of tournaments over a year or 2 period and look at the top 30, top 40 in these big fields and find the people who are constantly in the mix. If you're constantly in the final few tables of tournaments, then you're probably playing really well. Once you get down to those final few tables, there's a very fine line on what needs to happen to that's the difference between winning or coming in 12th place. You know what I mean? And a lot of it isn't even under your control. So It's more just people who are consistently giving themselves a chance to win as much as it is people who are actually getting the winning done that shows true success.
I see a question here from Mary Great Bluff in asking about, do you ever not like poker? If so, how do you push past? Like what happens when you're just sort of like over it, you're bubbling tournaments or you're not running well? It's just like, man, like things aren't going great. And what am I doing? Do you have moments like that where you got to look around and say, question, are you doing? Should you be playing poker?
Yeah. I mean, that happens a lot. I mean, when I say a lot, I play a lot. So since I've been playing in Vegas, for example, for the last 4 years since I moved out here, I play a lot of cash, and I was playing cash a lot of times 5 days a week or whatever. And there's probably at least 1 or 2 of those days where I'm sitting at the table and I'm just I don't want to be here. This is miserable. Poker's a really tough game, more so mentally than anything else, because especially if we're talking about tournaments, you're going to lose so much more frequently than you're going to win. And so obviously that's going to people don't want to lose. And so it's your last hand is almost always going to be a bad one. And for that reason, it takes a lot out of you mentally. And I think the only thing that you can really do is you just need to remind yourself, A, that, there's a lot worse things you could be doing in life than playing poker for a living. And B, this is what the game is. If the same people won every time, there'd be no poker. There'd be nobody to play with them. And you just need to embrace it for what it is. And when you have a bad day, maybe just cut the day short and just be done with it and try to have a better mindset the next day, it's not always the easiest thing to do. And I don't always do it. But I mean, if I could play perfectly from a mental standpoint, that's what I would do. I would try to only play when I was in the right mindset mentally. And when I wasn't, I wouldn't. And, I think that's something that is one of the tougher things to learn about yourself and learn how to do in order to put yourself in the best position to succeed.
And give me a bit about your mindset. When you go and play, do you like to be there on time? Do you do any type of meditation or ritual? Are you off your phone when you play? Does it just kind of depend, or what's your sort of preparations look like for, let's just take the WSOP event during the summer?
I rarely am there on time for a day one. I don't like to use. I mean, there are plenty of times when I've max late regged, not necessarily because maybe there was a reason or I was in another tournament or whatever. I usually try to come in within usually when the antes start coming in or close to that, like I like to be able to. I'm not very nitty at the table, so I like to splash around, and obviously it's easier to do that when you're deep, and people tend to give away more chips early on. But also, like I was referencing before, I think it's all about a mindset. Like I'd rather go into a tournament, with 30 blinds and be like, perfectly in the right in the perfect mental spot for me to be playing well, than to rush in there with 100 blinds and be tired and not want to be there or whatever. So I think it's a type of thing where it varies from day to day, just depending on what I've got going on and what my mood's like, and if I'm feeling lethargic or not. I'm not a big meditator. I don't do that. So I think for every person it's different. My best advice would just be to get in the tournament as early as you can, as it equates to like your best, personal psychological state. If getting an extra hour's worth of sleep will make you play better, then get the extra hours worth of sleep. You know what I mean? If grabbing a quick bite and relaxing by the pool is going to help you play better, then do that, and reg with a few less blinds. I think in the long run you'll be better off.
I agree. Give your best life advice, like not even just sort of like what maybe you've learned from poker, not in the last decade. What have you sort of if you were to give some people advice out there for what their profession, their hobby, their life, like time, other things, like do you have any kind of thing you've learned from poker that you would sort of say that you could provide to an outlook on overall life? I mean, it's a little bit of a profound question, but just sort of some life advice you've got up to this point in your life that you've learned.
I mean, I think, and I struggle with this probably as much as anybody, but I think you need to, when things are not going well, you need to realize that they're probably not as bad as you think they are at that exact moment when you're really struggling. And by the same token, when things are going really well, they're obviously not usually quite that good, which obviously is nothing new. People have talked about this before, but I think it's important to know that, you really need to kind of find a middle ground. I think, you can't just live, you can't just, when things are going great, you can't just assume they're going to stay that way. And when things are going awful, you can't just assume that they're not going to get any better. You just kind of need to do the best you can at keeping as even keel as you possibly can. And this goes for poker or any aspect of life. And again, I'm not great at this, and I know that. And if I could be better at anything, I think it would probably be that. Not getting too down when things are bad and not getting too high when things are good, especially the down part. Because, a lot of people have talked about it recently, like mental health is a real thing. And, think about, if most people think back to like some of the worst times that they've had and the biggest down stretches that they've had in their life, like, I'm sure that they, after they've gotten through that, they realize that, the way they thought then is not necessarily the way things really were. And you're not usually thinking your best when you're at the lows or the highs. And so you need to really be cognizant of where you're at mentally and try to rein it in and understand that things will get better. And things probably will get worse, and then they'll even out somewhere in the middle, and you just kind of got to roll with it the best you can. Yep,
I couldn't agree more with that. Love that. What would you say to someone starting poker? Best poker advice for someone in 2021. Now it's different. It's a completely different landscape than it was. But what would you tell someone that wants to go and kick it around with the Aria and play a 1-2 cash game, or someone looking to play online? What would be your advice to someone who's starting out in poker? How to sort of balance between learning, studying, playing? Like what type of ratio or advice would you give?
I mean, I know this isn't like the predatory answer that you should give, but I would tell them to be very careful. Poker is a very hard game to just get started in right now. And if you really want to do it, I would say don't do it full time until you're at a point where you can financially afford to do so. And also, you need to be prepared to lose a lot before you win. And if you can't do that, then you probably shouldn't be doing this. Very few people are going to get into poker right now at the level the game is being played and be successful right off the bat. It's just, it's almost impossible. And you need to be prepared for that and understand that it really is a lot of work. Even if you don't necessarily want to sit there and read and study it, then you need to be at the poker table playing a game that maybe not too exciting because there's not a ton of money on the table, but that you're just sitting there and learning and picking up things and noticing things about others and yourself and just seeing as many hands as possible. And you need to, it's like anything that you want to be really good at and make your career, make your life, you need to work at it. You know what I mean? It's not just going to happen because you think that, you know, you're really good at bluffing somebody. You're really good at making reads. It doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? The best baseball players, the best actors, the best basketball players, every one of them, no matter how good they are, they work their asses off. Like the LeBron James practices nonstop. He practiced his whole life to get to where he is, and he's one of the greatest athletes ever. And if you want to be really good at poker or anything else that you do, you're gonna have to do a lot of work. You know, otherwise it's probably not gonna end well for you. You know.
For sure.
Unless you're as lucky as Jeff.
And what did you say? What's my lucky tip?
No, I said unless you're as lucky as you. You can do whatever you want, and anything you touch turns to gold. But not everybody's like that. Not everybody's like that, Jeff.
I don't know. I don't even know how to respond to that. I will say I put a lot of effort and time into things. I was poker aside, whatever. But I hear Jared. I'll take whatever comment I can get. It's tough out there. Would you recommend a coaching for a mid-stakes MTT player? Do you believe like coaching is valuable, like having an actual coach for poker, or do you think it's better to just do it yourself?
I think it depends on the player and it depends on the coach. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that I see them charging people for poker coaching, and I think to myself, there may not be a bigger scam running right now because they should be paying double to somebody else to teach them what they're charging to teach other people. And then there's some people out there that are incredible poker players and they're incredible teachers, and people can benefit a lot from them. And it also depends on the type of player you're talking about. Like what are you trying to do? Are you trying to, you know, play poker once a month and just you know, enjoy yourself? Then I don't really think that you need to spend, you know, hundreds and thousands of dollars on coaching to do that. If you're like somebody who's taking this seriously and playing for a living and you want to take that jump in your game and you're not seeing that you're able to do it on your own, if you could find a coach who's good at what they do and who really understands the intricacies of the game, then it's probably going to be worth your time and your money. But like I said, a lot of people out there think that they are a lot better than they are and think that they could teach a lot of people, but in reality, they're just trying to make a buck for themselves. So you need to be careful about who you're paying. And also, just because somebody's good at something doesn't make them a good teacher or a good coach. And, you know, it's just like, again, I'll use the sports analogy. Like a lot of the best managers and coaches weren't the best players. And a lot of the best players wouldn't make great coaches or managers. So, you know, just because somebody's really good or doesn't mean that they're going to be able to help you. And, you know, just because somebody may not have the greatest results doesn't mean that they can't teach you something. So I just think you need to speak to people. You need to figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish. And I think after you try to figure that out, and if you decide that you need some coaching to do that, you need to ask around and you need to find out who the people are who are going to be best suited to take you to where you want to go.
For sure. WSOP or WPT? Just quick answer.
WPT.
Favorite sport to watch?
College basketball.
Yeah, it was tough this year. That was tough for you too. That's not easy to overcome. That was like,
yeah, that was brutal.
Things can be bad, but you're not expecting no March Madness. That's just.
I tell you, my two best friends from back home, my friends come out here every year for the conference tournaments to come visit me, and they showed up literally the day the world basically ended. They flew out here. Their wives let them come out here for a trip. They let them come out once a year. They literally get on the plane, they land, and that was the day Rudy Gobert got corona. And the NCAA tournament, all the games got canceled the next day, and they went home the day after they got here. So it was a rough timing for college sports fans and for me and my friends this year for sure.
Yeah, that is tough. And I know you love sports a lot. You love NBA. Is NBA, is that fair? Basketball in general, is that your next favorite sport or thing you watch?
I watch the NBA, but that probably be towards the bottom of the list. College basketball, baseball, then the NFL. I still watch pretty much all the NBA and college football, but those are probably a little lower on my scale. Hockey, I watch. I like the Knights. I root for the Knights, but I'm not a diehard hockey fan.
How is the vibe for the Raiders out there, the Las Vegas Raiders? Kind of bizarre. The new stadium, it's exciting, and then it's like no one can go in there. They start out 2-0, they lose a couple games. Like where do they? What's going on with them? Are you behind them?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard because I mean, there couldn't really be a worse time to start a franchise in Vegas when you can't even have any fans come to the game. I think that the stadium looks amazing, even though somehow they found the shittiest airline in the world to put their name on it. That's kind of crazy. Allegiant.
Who?
Allegiant.
Allegiant Airlines? Yeah,
that's who sponsors the stadium. Big Allegiant sign right on the front. The stadium's great. It looks great. We could see it from the balcony from our apartment. I think that the city would probably be fairly excited about it. It won't be like the Knights were because it's different when you start a team here as opposed to bring a team here from a different city. A lot of people who live in Vegas, I'm sure, already root for a different team. So it's a little different, but I think the city will get behind it. I think it'll be fun. I think I would have definitely been at the first game had there been no Corona. It would have been a cool event to go to. I look forward to going to games once this isn't Corona isn't a thing. But yeah, I mean, I think soon enough we'll have an NBA team and maybe an MLB team here, and Vegas is gonna keep building on its sports empire. I think they've proven that they could do a good job of that here.
Holy shit, dude! This is a crazy bug behind me. I don't know if you can see it. This is like a Pence moment. Can you see this thing or no? Hold on.
No. Where is it?
It's like right here. Oh, you can't see my.
Why don't you kill it?
I mean, it's like a tarantula or something.
Take your shoe off and smash it.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I see something. Take off your shoe and hit it.
I'm not.
Be a man.
It's honestly, it's not even a fly. It's like it thing's an animal almost.
Come on, man. It's okay.
Dude,
kill
see it or not?
I think I see it. Is it right there? It's right there. Right? Yeah, I see it. Just take off your shoe and smash it, and we move on.
I'm not gonna kill it. I'm just gonna move it. What? I honestly don't know what it is. Holy shit, dude! It's got. I mean, hold on. I don't want to kill it, but I want to hit it, and then it's gonna come after me, man. I really don't like. You see it or not, Jared?
Yeah, I see it, and I think you should kill it.
I'm not. I'm just gonna give it a love tap, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's gonna sting me or something. All right, hold on. Let me get a.
It might be a murder hornet.
Whoa! Whoa! Do you see it flying around there? No, it's now even more in the center. Bro, what? Can you see it or not? I can't see it on the thing. Oh, yeah, you can see it, can't you?
I saw something. I don't see it anymore.
It's like right there.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Do you see it?
Yeah, I see it right above your, right next to your microphone.
I can't. I hit my mic. I hope that, bro, hold on. Let me see here. Time out. I'm not really sure what to do here. I gave it a good nudge, man. I mean, I gave it a good tap here. Jared, what would you do? You would just smoke it? You would just end it?
I would 100% kill it.
I can't really see it on the thing. Hold on.
Stop being such a liberal.
Oops, totally missed
it. That's not what I would do.
All right, I just launched it. It's alive. Just absolutely launched it. All right, that was, dude. You don't know the size of that thing. I'm telling you, that wasn't your finest moment.
I'm not gonna lie, that wasn't your finest moment.
At least it didn't. I mean, I think I might have lost the mic. Woo! Okay, it's away. It's away. I just don't like bugs. I don't like bees. Kind of looks like a bee and a fly combo there. Got the blood flowing. Had a little too much coffee. That was Jared. That was exciting. It wasn't a Pence thing. At least I was just waiting for it to land on the head. That was what I didn't want to have happen. All right, poker influences. Who are your poker influences? I know you hang out with Massey, Benny, the boys, but like, give me some. Growing up, were there any like poker heroes? Did you see someone on TV like, oh, that dude's crazy, or I love how he plays? Like, who was when you were watching TV growing up with poker, who did you like?
I mean, I would say like before I was really playing and I was just watching, like Ivy and Negrano were probably my favorite, poker players. Like when I first got to play with them, that was like an exciting point for me. I mean, that's pretty standard. Like they were the pinnacles of the game back when I was first starting to play. And, so those were probably the people who I looked up to, I guess, before I started playing for real on my
own. Okay, fair enough. Those are household names. What about sports cards? I saw something here. I'm like obsessed with sports cards now. I saw you put something, Ronnie Barda. Put something. Do you have any basketball card collection stuff?
That actually was my card that he put up. So Ronnie's really big. Ronnie's a good friend of mine. He's super big into sports card collecting, and he's got a lot of valuable stuff, and he's been buying and selling, and he was talking about it, and I realized that I had all this stuff back in my house and with my parents, and so I got my mom to box up all my stuff and send it out here. It was like 100 pounds of cards. So I don't know anything about it. I was literally collecting this maybe 25 years ago or whatever, maybe more. And so Ronnie was nice enough to come over and go through all my boxes of cards and try to weed out what had some value and whatever. And, we went to Tom Marchese's store the other day, and
yeah. I was just going to say that. I how nice is the store? Because I went to his house and I grabbed stuff from him in December, and the sports card industry is absolutely on fire right now. I mean,
through the roof right now.
10, 20, 30x, 40x some of the stuff in the last 2-3 years.
It
really is wild. What kind of stuff did you have? Do you have actually like old school stuff, or?
I mean, most of the stuff I had was like from a couple year period in the early 90s when there was like a 3-4 year period where my dad and I were like collecting and like going to shows and stuff like that. But then I kind of got over it. So everything I have was mostly from like early 90s. I had like the good stuff that I had was like, I had like rookies. Like I was collecting during the rookie years of like Griffey and Jeter, and I had some like Shaq and Kobe stuff like that. Those guys were rookies when I was collecting, so I had some stuff for those type of players, but nothing great. And the problem was obviously I didn't. I was a kid when I was doing it, so if they're not in perfect condition, the value of them just is like 1/10 of what they would be if they were. So most of my stuff wasn't completely perfect. So. But yeah, I went to me and Ronnie went to Tom's store the other day. Had some of my stuff looked at, sold a few things, hold on to some stuff, and it was, there's not a whole lot going on, so it was a couple-day project, but Ronnie's super into it. He's showing me cards that he's got, worth tens of thousands of dollars. He's really into it, and he knows his stuff. So. We had a nice time.
I've gotten pretty obsessed with it. I think it's actually just the infancy in the thing, because it was like a 10-20 year kind of lull, sort of like just nothing happening. Now it's sort of I think it's just getting kicked up. But anyway, so I would hold on. I would hold some of that stuff and maybe get it graded. I think you're in a good spot, Jaffe. Just when you think things aren't going your way, you find a pile of cards and things turn around. It's nothing.
Yeah, I know. I might be able to pay the cable bill this month.
We could talk cards for rent. I mean, we could look at that. Let me see what you got. Send me over your best stuff in a picture, and we'll go for there. What's your biggest non-poker achievement? Was it the passing the bar you mentioned?
Yeah, probably.
Nice.
I would say so.
How do you deal with bubbling a poker tournament? Let's take a big one. 10K, 25K, you stone bubble 1, 2, 3 off the money, you play for a day or 2.5, and you just don't cash and you just can't breathe. What do you do?
Take his Xanax. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it probably depends, like it's weird. Just like sometimes even it's not even always about the exact amount of money that you're playing for. Like sometimes the way it happens is just far more, devastating than others. Like sometimes you're in a tournament, like you're short the whole time and you just kind of have it in your head that it's, nothing good's going to happen. And you bubble a tournament when you had like 5 lines and like it might have been for a lot of money, but like you kind of like felt it coming. And then there's another one where maybe it's for like 10% of the money up top or whatever, but like you had the chip lead 20 minutes before, and now all of a sudden you're bubbling the tournament, and you just feel like you don't even know what just happened. And like all of a sudden you're sweating and you don't know what's going on, and you're just like, what just happened? So it really depends. I mean, I would say the best thing to do, if you can, is to just try to, go get a nice meal and hang out with your friends and try to get your mind off of the money that you just incinerated. But sometimes the best thing, at least for me, is literally just to go home, close the door, get in bed, watch some TV, and just, let it just evaporate around you. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just need to wallow in your misery for a little bit, and sometimes you need to try to counteract it. It just kind of depends on your state of mind.
For sure. And would you say, so let me just see, we got a bunch of questions. We've actually answered a lot of these, but look at the people. They want to look at these questions, Jared. And this is not nothing. This is like, people really want to know what's going on. Let's see. But all right, I don't like leaving on a bad note, but difficult hand. Was there ever like a hand, a main event, or a bad beat, or some kind of crazy, like, 6 spot, or what that you remember that was like just pivotal? Maybe you would have won a tournament, or it was just such a big pot or situation that stands out for you? Good. Let's do a good and bad.
I mean, I've got a few. I would say the worst one that sticks out for me that I still think about to this day was when I got 7th that year at 5 Diamond, when it was like $2 million for first. And I was like chip leader, and then with 7 people left, I lost 2 flips, and I was like middle of the pack, and I got it in on a 7-8-9 rainbow flop with Jack 10 against Tobias Rankenmeyer, and he had queens, and it came 7-7, and yeah, that one still stings. Final table bubble of the TV bubble of 5 Diamond. I think it was the biggest one they ever had for like $2 million, and to get it in that good and have that run out after being chip leader when the final table started, I think. That was a lot of EV that got a lot of it got shredded on that hand, and I still think back what might have happened if I had won $1 million or $2 million instead of 150,000 or whatever it was. What
do you think about that whole, like, kind of everything happens for a reason? We're in the matrix or whatever. Like, do you believe, because like your point, I think about this sometimes too. Like, I've got some pretty brutal seconds, thirds in poker per se. Because like, let's say you win $1 million, your first, like Zamani, you hit $1 million score that first week, you go to Biloxi, you win, whatever. Like, is there certain parts of me believes in like the journey or the path or how things kind of happen? Because like, it's kind of weird in tournaments, especially. Like, you get in this spot, as you said, you got to put yourself in good positions. But when you get to a final table, guys have between 10 and 45 blinds. Like, we're talking about some all-in, some coolers, and like what are we talking about in some spots? Like, do you believe that maybe the things are sort of like, it's better that they happen in a way, or you just always want to win, right? I mean, of course, you want the money.
No, I don't believe. I got to be honest. I'm not much of a big everything happens for a reason person. Like, obviously, it may turn out that way. Like, it's possible that something bad happened can translate into something good later on, or something good happening could translate into something bad later on. But I don't think that it's necessarily just because, things happen for a reason. Like, I think, life is unpredictable, and, bad things happen and good things happen. And I don't think there's necessarily a reason for most of them. I think, just sometimes it's the luck of the draw, and you got to hope that in the grand scheme of things, more good things happen than bad things, and that's not just in poker, that's in everything. And I don't think that I don't think that just because one thing happens one way that you can anticipate that another thing will happen. I think most events are independent of one another for the most part, unless obviously certain situations are not. But in general, I think things happen because they happen, not because they were destined to happen.
Right. And I see people, do anyone call you JJ? Is that kind of like, you rep jacks harder than most? Like, jacks is a difficult hand. I'd say ace, queen, and jacks are like the hardest hands to play in poker because you get them a lot, and they're kind of tricky spots a lot. What's your jacks relationship?
I mean, honestly, some people have called me JJ. I've definitely been called JJ, but not that often. And in terms of JJ and Jack, I honestly have never even thought about it until you just brought it up. It's never entered my mind. Yeah,
You should
I
play
mean,
it a little harder. Maybe I just wonder if you had a JJ tattoo, you know, like some sort of
no.
significance with it. You rep
I'll
it
tell
hard.
you what. If you make me, an offer, I heard there was a time where somebody got an offer for a tattoo. They got a few bucks for it. If you want to make an offer like that or put something like that together, I could be convinced to do so. I have no tattoos. So, if you want to put something together, talk to some people.
I'd pay
What?
for it. How about that? I'll pay for your tattoo for JJ.
No. I need to be compensated. I need to be compensated for scarring this perfect body. You know what I mean? Like when you have a work of art like this, you don't want to just draw on it.
It's a canvas. It's a
big canvas.
I think we've covered a lot, Jared. Is there anything you want to mention? I mean, this has been a treat. It's been a long time coming. We sort of got to showcase your career, some major scores, some triumphs, some hardships, some ups and downs, and just overall, COVID that you've been kind of pinned to a beautiful place for a while, but it's tough in there. Anything else you want to let everyone know, like what you feel, election stuff coming up? What's your prediction? Are you betting on the election? Do you think is it a shoo-in? What's your take?
I'm not betting on this election. I bet on the last one. I'm not betting on this one. I think my mind has changed a bunch on this, and I thought, before COVID, I didn't think there was a chance Trump could lose. And I think right now I would be very shocked if he won. I don't think he's going to win. I don't really personally like either of our options. Like most people, I don't think. I think the best way to judge society right now is if anybody really loves either of the options, there's probably something wrong with them. I think if you have a level head, you can't be thrilled about either. If you're super gung ho about one side or the other, I'm a little worried for you. But things aren't great in this country right now, and I hope they get better, not just with Corona, but with everything. And I also think that, and I'm not even going to say where I stand in this, but I just think that depending on your certain specific situation, I think a lot of people would be better off with one person winning, and a lot of people would be better off with the other person winning. And just depending on what's important to you, and where you are in life, and what the most important issues are for you. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't necessarily think that makes anybody good or bad. I think that most people vote for what they think is going to be best for them, and I think that you can make an argument for. Depending on what the issue that's most important to you is, you can make an argument for both people. But things definitely aren't good now. And in my estimation, if things aren't good, then we probably need some sort of change.
But you're not moving out of the country one way or the other. If someone wins or loses, you're not like ripping off.
No. I still think we're better off here than most places, and I'm not in any hurry to leave.
Fair enough. I love it. Well, I see Amelia's in
and
the
I
chat.
do want to say one thing. There's going to be a little competition for you, because before long, we've been working on this. Myself and Ralph Massey are going to have our own show that we're putting together. It's going to be, similar to this, some type of podcast. We're ironing out the last of the details, and that is going to be coming soon. We're going to film our first episode hopefully in the next few weeks or so. And we'll put that on Twitter, and there'll be a link for that where everybody can watch, and it will be not suitable for work type viewing. The topics will not probably be very much poker related. It'll be a lot of inappropriate stuff. If you know me or Ralph, you'll understand the type of things we'll be talking about. And
right.
If you've got young children, I would not have them around when listening. But yeah, so we are gonna, for everybody out there, keep your eyes and ears open, because there's going to be some interesting content coming out soon for us.
I love it. Well, you took my last question out of my mouth for the thing about what are you up to, and what's going on. So it looks like that's awesome. I love a good competition, and I don't even view it like that. I think the more the merrier. Podcast, Twitch, YouTube, bring it in. I would love to promote. Let me know when it is. I'd love to.
Yeah, well, we certainly want to have you on as a guest. A pillar of the community like you. We want you on as a guest. You know,
Well, it
you're
sounds
good
like
eye
it's a controversial podcast. It sounds controversial. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to get in there. It sounds like it's kind of like a wild twist. But
I got to be honest, man. You know, sometimes you got to be a little controversial in life. You know, you can't always play both sides of the fence. Sometimes you got to get in there and just, you know, throw caution to the wind.
Maybe that'll be the one that I'll mix it up and really get after it in that. That seems like a good atmosphere that you could bring I don't want to say the word. You could bring it out of anyone with that kind of sandwich between you two and just going at it. There could be some crazy stuff happening. So I
feel like it'll be interesting stuff, and I think people will enjoy it. And I think that in the climate that we've got going on right now, people could use some laughs, you know what I mean? Not taking everything so seriously, and I think that's what we're going to bring to the table.
I love it. Well, speaking of bringing something to the table, let's put a $55 ticket in the air. It's not too late. We got some live viewers. This will be up on all the outlets of podcasts. This is a live delight. Thank you, Jared, for giving us that live, beautiful picture, video quality live. You know, some people like to record, do it off, whatever. This is like in the moment. We're just letting whatever goes. It's a little bit of a risk for everyone to be live, but you've controlled yourself well. And other than some F-bombs, I think we've had a pretty clean podcast. So that will be out everywhere. And Jared, we got a $55 ticket courtesy of Party Poker, which I believe is your favorite site. I don't know that's for sure, but I'm guessing.
I've never gotten bad beat on that site that I can remember.
Oh, there you go. So let's go ahead and we're gonna look at 141 people that did love this beautiful thing we have for a banner. Look at a banner holding up kings winning trophies. That's not bad. That's not a bad deal. What tournament was that right there? We got this photo from.
That was I think that was the circuit at the bike, the main event at the bike, the WSOP circuit.
Just winning titles left and right. Hard to keep track, but there's another, and we're going to go ahead and do the $55 ticket on your command. You tell me when we're going to end this bad boy this giveaway. You tell me when. When has been called. Let's roll it. We got a 55 ticket. You never know. 55. We saw someone take $100 to 600K on Party. You never know what they might just do. It happens. The dream is alive.
I won 10%.
You won. That is a first where we have a female winner.
This?
So
Who is this?
It could be your future someone. It could be at the 55 ticket. You are involved. And I don't know. You want me to put that in the message? I'm gonna write it right now.
Tell her I'd like to discuss this with her.
55 ticket. Congrats. What is your Party Poker username? Also, Jared Jaffe would like you to DM him.
Yeah, right? Please slide in my DMs, please.
All right, I wrote it. I don't know if that's allowed or not, but we'll just push it out there and let you take it from there. I have no responsibility on what transpires in your conversation. Neither does Party Poker for that matter. I want to clarify that. And Mr. Jaffe, any closing words for everyone out there? It's a crazy year. I think you crushed it on the podcast. I always wish the best for you and the apartment that you're in. Those are two things I wish for often and frequently think about. But
the apartment is in great condition. It's better than you left it. Thanks for having me on. I had a good time. It was nice to be able to do something other than just lay in bed and watch Law and Order reruns this afternoon. So thanks for that. And I had a good time. Appreciate it. Hopefully I didn't embarrass you.
No, I think it actually went better than expected, which is I had high expectations. So that's a big comment. This was good. We had a nice podcast. We did it all. And give them a follow. Jared Jaffe, is that their most active social? What's your socials? Instagram? Sorry, Twitter?
Twitter, basically, yeah. Twitter. Jared Jaffe 21, I think. I'm not even sure. Yeah,
that's it. There it is. You know it. Don't tell me you don't know. Look at that. This is what's going on. He drops bombs and he's in the mix and he's doing it all. Look at that, man. RIP Mike Sexton, the legend, man. One of the best for sure. All right, Mr. Jaffe, I appreciate you. Thank you. And I'll see you, I hope, soon in Vegas or otherwise.
Yeah, let's talk, buddy. I appreciate you having me.
Yes. Cheers, guys. That's Jared Jaffe, number 9. What's that?
Fantastic job as always, man. One of the best in the business. Jeff Gross.
I appreciate it. Number 94 in the books. We got 3 podcasts scheduled next week. We'll get that schedule out. Jaffe 94. Good year, good number, good man. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.